Anatomy of a rave loop. Alright, so I've got this loop in front of me, the one you just heard in the intro. This is all the individual layers. This is pulled out of my Ultimate Rave Loops kit. The link for that is at the top of the description. It's 10 of these with the Ableton files plus all individual loops as well and some bonus stuff. Links at the top of the description. But yeah, so the name of the game with rave loops is basically kind of getting some really simple percussion going. Like, if you listen to all this. You can hear that's basically like our main sort of basic loop, right? So we have, not too crazy, just a clap. You can hear the thing with this clap though is, so I'll show you what it sounds like just by default. Okay, so I made it really short. I've got a high pass on it inside of the simpler here. I've got a low pass after that. So and it's pitched down. So you're basically getting like that, and then some reverb with a lot of pre-delay. And then it's this like tiny sound. It would be louder. I also, keep in mind, I have it turned down quite a bit because of the distortion. But then you add some distortion. And then it becomes, like what you want. We just, Here I have this kick loop I made. I ended up recording this in. So it's probably like one of these. This kind of stuff. Maybe one that had a bit more mid-range percussion. And then I think I just distorted it a bunch. And then froze it down. So again, there's like a little bit of movement already going on in the basic loop. So you start from something like this. Right? And it's not that heavy, but it has a lot of movement. Then you start to bring in things like breakbeats. Right? So now it's not like a full breakbeat, it's just a little piece of it because we're really like filtering it. And you can see I just took this little short loop. It's not like the full breakbeat, it's just some hi-hats. So you get the breakbeat feel, but you're still going back to just like a basic sort of more housey, trance, techno sort of. But you see how that starts to add in some layers, right? And then we get like these rolls. So these would be like, maybe some more like live percussion type of sounds. I think that's what this was, like, a live percussion loop that was recorded. And then you just take short chunks. That's the key. That's how you get that choppy sound out of live percussion, is like little pieces of it repeated. I could have done this, right? But instead I did like, it's the same piece. So that's what gives it that really like, systematic kind of like processed feel. We've got a little bit more rolls too, like then you bring in like so just again more live percussion, and they're all starting to talk to each other. We've got this roll, which is just, you can see a bunch of percussion inside of a drum rack. If you use two different percussions like this, you can kind of make it feel more alive because they kind of start to talk to each other. We've got some more. This is another one of those ones where we're using a lot of like distortion, filtering, and delay. Those three effects together will create these kind of like textured sort of things you're going for. Because if I turn this all off, that's what we're starting from. Right? So you see I got a low pass filter, which is going down on a quarter note. I've got an echo doing quarter notes. I've got a bit of overdrive, a high pass filter, and then some drum bus. So it really gets pushed. And then you end up with that. And you're adding together all these little things like that. We have like some distorted percussion down here, where it's even more of that like multiple sounds in drum racks creating a live loop. You can see then we have a filter moving around. We have a bit of overdrive. some echo on eighth note or dotted eighth notes with ping pong. And you can hear the drum bus is really pushing it, and then a high pass. We have a ride. Even this is like playing with the sound design. Like I have a little bit of attack on it, so you can hear it's like it goes into the note, and it's just all these little things to create texture, and then they all add up. It's gonna be a lot of layers. I mean, this is 12 layers. Like honestly, if you were making a track, I would even think like 12 layers of drums might even be too much. But when it comes to these loops alone, 12 layers, or I'm not even saying it has to be 12 every time, but something between like 10 and 20 is how you're really going to get that feel. And it could be a little bit less. Like, don't take that as the gospel necessarily. Whatever feels good, but it's definitely not going to be like two sounds together. You know, it's got to be pretty complex what's happening there. The last thing to the rave loop is going to be master processing. So here's with none of it. With it. It's the last really subtle thing you can do to glue your whole rave loop together. The key here is going to be filtering and then limiting. I wouldn't really worry about a compressor because really a limiter is a compressor, right? So you could also maybe do some saturation, like different types of distortion here, you know, blended. Like I'm sure even if you grab amp and just blend it like a tiny bit. There you go, Texture City, right? So it's filtering, distortion maybe, and then a limiter. And then that's basically your compression because a limiter is a compressor. But you can see it's not doing that much. It just kind of animates the sound, right? Like we got a little bit, the low pass is cutting off like a very tiny amount of high frequencies that you barely hear. But then what happens is by cutting those off of every single thing at once, it kind of puts them all under the same like texture umbrella. And then it's going to make it feel more cohesive and more like one thing. And then the limiter is kind of the same thing. It's a very little amount of push we're doing. First of all, we're not clipping. Right? We're keeping it at like -2. Like it's not that low, but it's pretty low. And it's definitely not going to push past 0. And then we use the limiter on top of that and just push it like +4 dB like this. Make sure you turn the ceiling up. And like I said, it sort of animates the loop. It does make everything a little bit louder, first of all, which obviously louder always sounds better. But on top of that, it kind of glues everything. And you only do a little. I mean, if you do too much, you just lose it, right? It's just a little bit to kind of glue it all together and give it that little bit of oomph without overdoing it. And yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. That's the anatomy of a rave loop. That's how you do it. It's really not that hard, but I can see how it would be kind of hard to figure out. I took apart those old Vengeance and Ubershaw sounds and Best Service and all that kind of stuff and really studied it. And I'm telling you, this is how they did that stuff. They may have been doing it with older equipment, and like it probably took a lot longer too with old samplers to do all this kind of stuff. I mean, I can only imagine how long it took to make Vengeance club sounds with the old gear back in the day, but now we can do it easily with Ableton. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Check out Ultimate Rave Loops at the top of the description. Then we don't miss out. It's a gem. It's got 10 of these with the Ableton files, plus all the individual loops if you're not even in Ableton, plus, honestly, everything you need to make a track because we've got some bonus kick and bass and synth and effects loops as well. Don't sleep while it's available. You can also get this for free with my ES Pro subscription. Link for that's at the top of the description as well. Thanks for the support, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.